Alright, look, let's get one thing straight.
I'll have your tea ready in a minute.
No thanks, I'm good, I don't want any tea right now. You just don't understand. I mean, everybody tells you that tea is good for you, that you should drink it. But I don't want to drink tea. I think it's gross.
Drink some tea. Tea is healthy.
Get out of my head. I don't want to drink tea.
Drink tea or you'll be sorry.
Alright. Look, there's going to be some changes around here.
I made you chamomile tea.
No thanks. I said I don't want any tea. Look, I don't want to hear any more talk about tea. Do you understand me? Are you even listening to me? That's better.
Don't you want your tea?
I said no.
I made your tea.
I never asked you to.
I made your tea! Drink your tea!
All right, fine. Fine, I'll drink your damn tea. This is actually pretty good. What is up, everyone? How are we doing today? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, on here I do movie reviews for horror movies that came out in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. If that sounds like something you think you'd enjoy, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, click the bell icon, that way you'll be notified when I upload a new video. And hey, if you think this is good, hit that like button as well. Okay, so who's been giving Mother Nature some wine? Because she's obviously drunk. It is snowing right now. It is only October. This is ridiculous. So that's it. Mother Nature, you're cut off. So, does everyone know what their costume is for Halloween? I'm trying to decide between a couple. I'm thinking maybe either could do like a, I don't know, like a cowboy. That's usually pretty good. Or I could do maybe, I don't know, something from like Game of Thrones. Or I'm also throwing out the idea of a sexy nurse. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Yeah, definitely one of those three, yeah. And it's funny because I love Halloween and I love dressing up in costume and trick-or-treating, although people tend to kind of give you dirty looks when you're not a kid anymore. But hey, I love candy, so I'm going to do what I got to do to get me some free candy. Anyways, I love all that stuff, but almost every year ends up being a last-minute costume. That's probably because I'm a pretty huge procrastinator. This guy knows what I'm talking about. Alright, well, enough about me and the weather. Let's get into today's movie. Today we have Don't Go Into the House, which came out on March 28, 1980, and runs for 1 hour and 22 minutes. It had a low budget estimated around $250,000, but I don't think it plays as a low budget movie. It was written by Joe Masefield, Joseph Ellison, and Ellen Hamill. Joseph Ellison also directed it. Besides this one, he only directed one other movie called Joey. Don't Go Into the House is a story about a guy named Donny, whose mother would burn him when he was a child as a punishment. Now he stalks women to take out his revenge on. The movie starts off with this scene where we get the title of the movie along with some good music to help set the mood. We then meet Donny, played by Dan Grimaldi. This was actually his first movie, but you probably recognize him from The Sopranos. He played Patsy Parisi. We see that Donny has a thing about fire. Next, we see one of his co-workers, Ben, played by Charles Bonnet. He was in Death Promise. He's tending to the fire when a can explodes and causes him to catch fire. As he is burning, Donny just watches instead of trying to help him. Luckily, these guys come and put him out. While they were doing that, Donny grabs his things and leaves. Next, we get a closer look at Donny's boss, Vito, played by Bill Ricci. His only other movie is 29th Street. Vito was one of the guys who helped put out Ben. Here he's yelling at Donny, saying that Ben could have been killed because of him. At first, you might think Donny is just socially awkward, but then he says this.
No, the cover of Flame. The cover of the Flame.
So maybe there's more to it than that. Vito says that he always knew Donny was crazy and a sicko before leaving. Next, Donny is about to head out when we get a closer look at Bobby, played by Robert Carnegie. He was in Mother's Day. Bobby is inviting Donny to go have a beer, but Donny declines, saying that his mother is sick. Bobby then tells Donny that what happened to Ben wasn't his fault, that some guys just freeze in a situation like that. To which Donny responds,
You know, that's the way those people are. They call you names and they're the crazy ones.
And I gotta say, he does have a good point. We then see Donny driving home and we hear that he's not the only one inside his head, but it's kind of hard to understand. We see that Donny's house is huge, and when he goes inside, he yells to his mother that he's gonna go make her some tea. When he goes for the matches, we get some music and we hear,
No, Mother, don't!
Alright, so definitely something going on with the matches and the fire. He makes the tea, but when he goes to give it to her, he discovers that she's dead. He goes to call 911, I'm guessing, but then he tells himself that she's not dead. She's just sleeping and that she'll wake up any minute. And when he tries to wake her up, we hear those whispers again, telling him that now he's free. And
You can do anything you want to do.
to which he asks,
Can I play my music loud?
He then proceeds to put on some pretty sweet disco music and celebrate only the way a child of a truly strict household can. After putting out a cigarette on a figurine, he hears his mom yelling at him, and when he goes upstairs, he sees that she's still dead. Then we hear the whispers telling him that she wants to be purified, and that he's the master of the flame now, I think. Again, they are kind of hard to understand. He then goes down into the kitchen, and when he does, the music changes, and we get a flashback of when he was young. Apparently his mom used to punish him by holding his arms over the flames, saying that she's going to burn the evil out of him. He grabs the matches and heads upstairs. Then we hear a match being lit and Donny laughing, and then see this shadow, which looks like he's burning her arm. Well, turnaround is fair play. We then hear hammering and see that Donny is doing some home improvements. Bobby calls him to see if he's alright after Ben caught on fire, and Donny acts like he's already forgotten about it. Bobby invites him to get some coffee before their shift, and Donny declines again and says that he's not going into work because he has some things that he has to take care of. He then goes window shopping for some everyday items. We then see this florist closing up shop when Donny comes knocking. She says they're closed, but Donny asks if she can help him with something small for his mother because she's sick. Since it's for his sick mother, she lets him in. She closes up and just misses her bus, but Donny offers to give her a ride and she accepts because these guys are hanging around. On the way, he asks if she would mind them stopping by his house so he can drop off the flowers. When they get there, he convinces her to come inside to meet his mom, and once inside, he acts like his mom is still alive and pretends to go check on her. When he comes back down, he says that his mom is sicker than he thought and pretends to call a doctor. She asks to use his phone, and when she tries calling for a cab, he knocks her out. When she wakes up, we see what home improvements Donny has done. Now, it's also worth noting here that this movie ended up on the DPP's list of 72 video nasties, mostly because of this scene, which is kind of graphic. Some people might consider this scene something like what you'd find in a horror movie referred to as a splatter film or torture porn or gornos. So you've been warned. Now, video nasties is a phrase associated with censorship in the UK in the 80s. It had to do with the popularity of video cassettes and the lack of regulation with them. Basically, there wasn't much regulation for video cassettes released, so a lot of low-budget horror movies came out, and people in the UK were concerned that the cassettes could fall into the hands of kids. In comes the Department of Public Prosecutions with a list of 72 movies deemed to have too much violence, nudity, etc. So that meant that the film's VHS release was either completely banned from the UK or they censored it, essentially editing out the parts they didn't like. I'll put a couple links in the description in case you want to read more about it. I mean, it's a pretty interesting subject involving censorship. So what I'm doing here is showing the original along with the UK video release so that you can see the differences between the two. They obviously cut out the nudity, but they also cut out probably the one scene that this movie is known for, actually seeing her being set on fire. Now obviously this is fairly graphic, so it's easy to see why they cut it out, but on the other hand, it's also very well done. Also, I really like the shot of Donny staring at the screen, and before he actually lights it up, you see the igniter come on. It's a pretty strong and intimidating shot. And in the edited version, you don't see her at all after the fire is lit. Now, obviously, if this were real life and someone was on fire, I wouldn't want to see that. I mean, that would be horrible. But this is a movie, it's not real, and some people worked really hard on this fire scene, so I want to see it. Also, remember this movie came out in 1980, so this is a pretty intense scene for that time period. So it's kind of easy to see how this ended up on that list, but it's still censorship. Now, here's another scene that they edited from earlier in the movie. This is when Vito was yelling at Donny after he just watched Ben being on fire. Not only do they edit out the nudie poster by Bobby, but they also change what Vito calls Donny. Here's the original where he calls him...
And you stand there like a fag!
And then here's the edited
You
one.
stand there like a nutcase!
This is a case where there is no visual violence, but they still cut it down. Next, we see Vito telling Bobby to tell Donny that if he isn't back to work on Monday, he's out of a job. Then we see this lady who is having car troubles, and Donny drives by and offers to give her a ride. But first, he wants to stop by home. And we have another edited scene, and honestly, at least this one, you still get the scream and the smoke coming out of the door. It's not as much of a cut as the flower shop lady. Then Donny goes looking for a victim, and he goes into a little shop and picks out this lady. And instead of trying to play it cool and naturally develop a rapport with her, he straight up, out of nowhere, offers,
Can I give you a ride home?
She refuses, and the guy working asks if there's a problem, during which she leaves. Donny says he must have upset her, and that he's going to go apologize. Then we see him carrying her body and introducing her to his mother, and we see that he's been punishing her too. Then Bobby calls and relays Vito's message, and as they are talking, Donny sees his mother in the mirror, but it's just a hallucination. Donny says that he's in trouble, that his mom is really sick. Bobby tells him that he's there for him if he needs it. Bobby seems like a really nice dude. Donny goes to check upstairs, and then he hears his mom yelling at him. And when he starts acting like a scared child again, the whispers come back and say that his mom is still dead and that they'll help him. He then goes and yells at his mom. When he's leaving her room, he hears laughter from another room, and when he goes to check, we see that the three women from earlier are there. Now, this is another censored scene, but this one is actually opposite of the other ones. They actually show more in the edited version, which gives more of a character build-up of Donny and lets us know where his mind is at. Also, I think Grimaldi does an excellent job with this scene. He's telling them that they don't understand, that his mom hated his dad and therefore hated him, that his dad protected him, but after he left, his mom made every day a nightmare. He thinks that one of the ladies isn't like the others, she tries to be nice, so he goes in for some loving. But then he hears laughter again. He also tells them that he beat the hell out of his boss Vito and put him in his place, because no one else could. So not only is he lying, but he's lying to impress dead people. Before he leaves, he tells them if any of them take a drink, that he'll know. So he's definitely losing his grip on reality. As he's telling them no more laughter, he sees the shadow of someone, but just kind of ignores it. Instead, he takes a nap, and we see his dream as kind of abstract. He's on a beach, and there's a bit of fire and explosion. Then he sees the trench, and the three ladies pop out and drag him in. He wakes up and goes to check on the three ladies, and they're still there. Then he goes to check on his mom, and she's still there too, because, they're dead. He goes to get a drink, and when he tries to go back upstairs, he sees his mom standing there with fire behind her. So obviously he's losing his damn mind. Next, Donny goes to church, and I actually think this scene is done very well. The way they shot it and the music that they played, I think it's good because it fits perfectly to the fact that Donnie is lost and he's looking for some help. He decides to take some holy water when we meet Father Garrity, played by Ralph Bowman. You probably recognize him from nothing else. This is his only acting credit. Here he asks him if he believes in the devil and that people are born evil, because that's what his mother told him. He then shows the father the scars from his mother's punishment. Garrity demands to know who did that to him, and Donnie tells him it was his mother. And Garrity tells him that he has to forgive his mother and let go of his thoughts of evil. You know, I gotta say, I don't think that was quite the answer Donnie was hoping for. I mean, Garrity could have at least said what Donnie's mom did was wrong. Instead, it was just, move past it. Man, I'll never understand religion. Donnie goes home, and here they play some more good music. And I will say that this movie does have a lot of music in it, but unlike Drive-In Massacre, it actually fits and helps further the story. He tells his mother that he wants to forgive her before putting some holy water on her. He then goes and talks to the three ladies and tells them that he's going to change, that things are going to be different now, before putting holy water on them too. Then he hears the whispers again telling him, "Burn evil, burn evil." They say he better burn more or he'll be sorry. He refuses and the whispers stop. Well, hell, I mean, if it was that easy, he should have done that a long time ago. He then calls good guy Bobby and asks him if he wants to go see a movie and hang out. Bobby makes sure he's serious before offering an alternative to watching a movie.
Guess what I got lined up for tonight? 2 live ones, man. And let me tell you, they are dynamite.
Aw, man, Bobby. And I thought you were one of the good ones. Donnie says he was hoping for a quiet night so they could talk, and Bobby says his wife thinks he'll be working and that...
And I don't feel like sitting in some dumb movie holding your hand, no offense.
He tells him to meet him at a club later that night. You can tell Donnie doesn't want to, but he agrees. And I think the reason they did this with Bobby is because he's the first person Donnie talks to after deciding to change. And immediately, the guy he thought that was good and honest turns out to be a cheater and a liar. I think it's trying to show that there's no way that Donnie can get away from the evil, no matter what he does. It will always be there. After stopping by a shop to pick up some new clothes, Donnie heads to the disco. Once he gets there, he meets up with Bobby and the 2 live ones he mentioned on the phone. After some small talk, Bobby and his lady go dancing. And I'm going to show a little bit more of this scene than necessary because I think it's pretty sweet. I think discos were awesome, and this one has me feeling nostalgic for something I never went to. Anyways, Donnie's lady asks him to dance, and he says he doesn't, so she goes and dances with another guy. After a little bit, she stops back and comes over and grabs Donnie's hands to try to get him to dance. And the way she's doing it, with the fact that there's a candle between his arms, causes him to have a flashback. And he responds the only way you can in a situation like that. He throws a candle in her face and lights her hair on fire. Oh man, I mean, you gotta be real careful when it comes to head fires. As he casually leaves, Bobby asks him what the hell he did, and then someone tells the hair fire lady's brother what Donnie did, and he goes after him. He catches up with Donnie in a parking lot and lays a beat down on him. Donnie is able to get a shot in and gets away, and as he's driving, the whispers start back up again. Then we see these 2 ladies coming out of a bar and trying to flag down a ride. Donnie sees them and offers to give them a lift. While driving, he tells them that he just got jumped by 3 guys with knives, but that he beat the hell out of them because he was in the Marines. He was a Green Beret.
I thought the Green Beret was the Army.
Well, this was just like the Green Beret. It was a special division.
It's hard to tell if he actually believes the lie that he's telling, or if he's just kind of smiling because it sounds really good. But since he's lighting women on fire with a flamethrower, I mean, he probably believes it, I'm guessing. They're on their way to a bar, but one of the ladies doesn't want to see a certain guy, so Donnie offers to let them invite people over to his place. They happily accept his offer, and once they get to the house, the ladies split up and start looking around. While one of them is admiring the figurine from earlier, Donnie tells her that he wants to show her something that she'll really like. So she follows him to the burn room, and he slams the door shut. Then we see Bobby going to Father Garrity's and telling him that Donnie's in trouble and that he needs his help. So Garrity agrees to go with Bobby. Then the other lady finds something that she wants to show her friend, only she can't find her. She goes looking around and we see that Donnie is following her. And when she goes in the room with the 3 bodies, Donnie grabs her. Then Donnie goes and tells the 3 bodies that they're going to be getting some new company. He then says that they know there are some things he just won't stand for.
And one of them is lying!
And now they're going to have to pay the price. Now clearly he has no sense of reality anymore. I mean, he's already killed them in a horrific fashion. What other price can they pay? Then Bobby and Garrity start banging on the door and yelling, but Donnie just ignores them. Bobby busts open the door and they hear a woman screaming, and when they go to check it out, they find the 2 ladies in the burn room. And as they are leaving, Garrity decides to look around, then Donnie appears and tells him,
You lied to me!
before setting him on fire. And instead of stop, drop, and roll, he decides to run outside, where Bobby eventually puts him out. As Donnie makes his way to the 3 bodies, we see his mother watching him. When he gets into the room, he starts yelling at the ladies that he brought them into his house, gave them love and shelter.
Better than any of you ever had!
And yet they still turned on him. Ugh, did you see that? Here, I'll play it again. Ugh, yeah, okay, alright, one more time. This time, watch the eyes. Ugh, that's pretty creepy. As he's telling them off, we hear this.
We hate you, Donnie! What? We hate you!
Now this is some good panic music, which, fits perfectly here because now his delusions have become reality. And as they are yelling at him, we hear the whispers again saying that he shouldn't have told the priest and that he isn't the master anymore. He sets them on fire and goes to leave, but his mom is blocking the way. Then he gets swarmed by the ladies and the flames. Cut to this little boy coloring and his mom yelling at him to clean up his room. On the TV, we hear a report about finding 5 bodies at Donnie's house. The mom tells the boy to clean his room again before coming in and slapping the living bejesus out of him, with yelling that she's his mother and he won't ignore her. After her arm gets tired, we see the boy sitting there, then we hear the whispers talking to him, telling him that it'll be okay because they're there to help. And that's the movie. And now for some fun facts. Dan Grimaldi, he played Donnie, didn't have to audition for the part. He was doing an off-Broadway play at the time, and the director and the producers went and saw it a couple of times before offering him the part. I'm still not sure how I feel about Bobby. I mean, he seemed nice enough, and he kept trying to help Donnie, but then on the other hand, he was cheating on his wife. So, I don't know. The actresses who played the burned bodies were dancers. They were chosen because they were the same height as the unburned actresses, but quite slimmer. They did that because when the human body burns, it shrinks due to fluid loss. Talk about some attention to detail. Although it made its way onto the 72 video Nasties list, it wasn't actually prosecuted because the distributor made cuts, like what I showed you earlier, which resulted in 3 minutes and 7 seconds of footage being cut. I stand by my original statement. Tea is disgusting. So, would I recommend watching Don't Go Into the House?
Oh, yeah.
I like this movie. It's a little bit different because you have some empathy for Donnie, even though he's doing terrible things. I think Grimaldi did a fantastic job with the character. Sure, there are definitely some elements of Psycho in it, but it's not a copy of it by any means. And I think it's actually quite a good character piece. I don't know if this was fully intentional, but they put some real-life stuff into this movie. They have a solid backstory with his mother abusing him, which leads him to hating women and wanting to punish them. This is fairly common amongst actual serial killers. So that's actually really good writing. I think they do a good job of showing how Danny is a little crazy at the beginning, but then through the course of the movie goes full-blown nuts. I think they did a really good job with this movie. If you want to check it out, I'll put a link in the description where you can watch the edited version for free. In my last review, I looked at The House of the Dead. Now, "the" is very important in the title on that. Otherwise, it's a different shitty movie. And I'll put a link up so you can check out that too. Alright, well, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.